It's possible to learn that it is the case that you're not who you thought you were by interacting with a teacher. And some of the teachings that exist that present this dialogue, this teaching, are the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, the different teachings from the East, the Taoist teachings, the Tao Te Ching, the Advaita Vedanta teachings. These are all ancient teachings that are about recognizing the truth, or about realizing that your true identity is not a physical body and not a personality. And so I'm summarizing that here by just saying that we're not going to go through that whole process here. It's a process that we talk about in this class, so I can support you and assist you in seeing through the belief that you're a physical body and you're a personality, so that you can begin to realize the evidence is very clear that that's not the case. The evidence speaks very clear for the truth, and the truth is that you're not a physical body and you're not a personality. And what you are, according to the teachings, is the awareness that is always available, the awareness that is always occurring. Right now it's occurring for you and I. There's awareness that's occurring for you and I right now. It's always there. It's not a form, it's not physical, it's not a concept, it's non-conceptual, it's not a personality, and yet it's there. It's there all the time. It's never not there. And so it's consistent, it's completely stable, it never changes. So the teachings tell us that this is the way to be liberated, this is the way to get out of the condition of suffering, by realizing that your true nature is this awareness that's always here. And for most of humanity, this awareness is being ignored all the time. That's called ignorance. It's being ignored all the time. And so it's being ignored all the time because if you believe that you're a personality and you believe that you're a physical body, then that's what you're giving your attention to. You're giving your attention to being a personality, which means that you're going to be the thinker of your thoughts. You're going to think about everything. You're going to think about your life. You're going to think about your problems. You're going to think about the past and the future. And you're going to try and learn enough to figure it all out so that you can be in control of the whole thing, right? That's kind of the process of trying to be a person that is functional, a person that is happy, a person that is successful living a human life. The problem is that if you pay attention to that process of trying to learn enough to be in control, or trying to figure it out enough to know what's going on and avoid suffering, if you pay attention, you'll start to notice that that process is not working. That no matter how much you learn, no matter how many degrees you get, right, no matter how much you figure things out, that you still continue to suffer. That the mental state that human beings experience is a mental state that creates suffering. Why? Because it is interpreting everything that's happening all the time. The thought process is an interpretation of reality. It's interpreting what's happening all the time. And not only is it interpreting what's happening all the time, this is the mental process. Not only is it interpreting what is happening all the time, but it's comparing it all the time, right? When you're comparing what's happening to what you think should be happening, right? There's a model that you have in your mind based on past experiences, right? So you keep comparing. This is going on all the time, right? Comparing the weather today to the weather the way we like it. So today is a good day because this is the way we like it. But if it's raining and we listen to the weather report, the collective judgment about the weather is that if it's raining, that's not as good as when it's sunny. And your whole life is following the same process, right? That each day is a day in which you're comparing what's going on now to some other time. You're comparing it to a way that you believe it should be, the way you want it to be, the way you think it should be. And one of the ways you think it should be is you think you should be happy all the time, right? Well, that would be nice if it was possible, but it doesn't appear to be possible because most people are trying to be happy all the time. They're pursuing it. They're pursuing happiness. They're pursuing peace. They're pursuing satisfaction. And it's a never-ending process because you never succeed. There are times when you experience what we call happiness, but upon further examination, you could recognize that it's not actually happiness. Well, maybe we think it's happiness, but the happiness that we think it is means that I'm happy. Why? Because it's the way I want it right now. That's why I'm happy. I'm happy right now because I got what I want. When I get what I want, I'm happy. So I have to keep looking for things that I want that I can get so I can be happy. But it doesn't necessarily get noticed that every time you get something that you wanted, now you don't want it anymore because you have it. And after you have it and you have it for a while, the fact that it was making you happy starts to dissolve. It starts to dissipate. It's not making me happy anymore. That new car made me happy the first day I had it, maybe even a week after I had it. But after that, it just lost its luster. I wasn't thrilled in the morning when I got up and looked at the car, right? And then when I got the bill for the first month payment and I saw what my car insurance is going to be for this new car, I started to lose more of that happiness about having the new car, right? This is the way it goes, right? And then what do you do when that happens? What do? You start looking around to see, well, let's see, that happiness isn't there anymore. So, what else is there that's going to make me happy? And you start looking. You start looking into the future to see what can I look forward to that will make me happy so I can start trying to get to that to make me happy. Is it a new relationship? Is it a dog? Is it a house? Is it a car? Is it more money? Right? Is it a facelift? What is it? Right? If you look right now, you will see that in your mind right now, you have things like that you're working with, right? You have things that are going to make you happy that you're investing in. Maybe it's your retirement, right? Maybe it's paying off your house. Maybe it's getting the kids to move, right? You know, whatever it is, there's something in your mind that when that happens, then I'll be happy. But you never stop to notice that there's a pattern here, that every time you get what you want, it never lasts. And you end up back being unhappy again, right? So one of the things to take into consideration is whether this is really what happiness is. I say it's not. I say what it is, it's gratification. It's called gratification. I'm gratified when I get what I want, right? But if that's not happiness, then what is happiness? Well, what the teachings tell us is that happiness is the natural state. Happiness is the way our awareness always is. Why? Why is that the case? Because the awareness that we are doesn't want anything. It doesn't need anything. It's not trying to get anything. It's not dissatisfied. It's not unhappy. It's just the way it is. It's just here. It's just available. And so the definition for happiness to awareness is not trying to get anything. No. The definition of happiness to awareness is when I am experiencing myself as this awareness and I don't want anything and I don't need anything, and so I'm kind of not playing that game anymore, right? Because I'm not playing that game anymore, what happens is I notice that the suffering that comes from playing that game stops happening. I stop suffering because I'm not trying to get anywhere or do anything anymore. I'm just being here with the way it is. And I know that everything is constantly changing in the world. And I know that the personality is constantly changing. And I know the thought process is always changing. And I know that my feelings are always changing. But me as the awareness is never changing. Never wants anything, never needs anything, never changing, right? And so then happiness happens. Happiness happens. So happiness, as it's defined in the teachings, is the absence of suffering, right? If you stop and slow down and look at it, if all the things in your life that caused you to suffer stopped happening, just imagine, if all the things in your life that caused you to suffer stopped happening, what would be there? What would the experience be? Yeah, you see, so if you just entertain that and you kind of imagine what it would be like, you can get the idea that awareness is always happy. Why? Because it doesn't suffer. So it's always happy. It's just naturally happy because it doesn't suffer. It's not playing the mind game. It's just being present. So that's what the teachings tell us, that you've made a mistake, you've misidentified yourself, you couldn't help it because you had to go through that learning process, you had to go through that process of being conditioned in order to be part of life in the world as we know it. It was inevitable for that to happen. But you can graduate to the next level, which is to realize that was only what you had to learn to function in the world. But that's not who you are. And if you go further and then discover that my true nature is this awareness that is formless, that is always here, that doesn't need anything, and you start to experience yourself as that awareness, then you start to experience a natural state of well-being and happiness. So that's what the teachings tell us, right? So if you heard what I just said, and you get the idea, right, that the solution to suffering is to realize your true nature. And if you realize your true nature and you start being that what you actually are, which is the awareness itself, you'll be happy. That's the teaching, okay? So now you got it, so just start being happy. Now wait a minute. I just gave you the answer to your life. I just gave you the answer to experiencing happiness and to stop suffering. I did. I just gave you the answer. So everybody here is aware of the fact that awareness is an experience you're having right now, yes? Yes. Yeah, it's the one thing you can't deny, that there is awareness there, right? There's awareness there. Therefore, what I'm pointing to is real. It's real. It's actually happening with you right now. It's real, right? And you can look at that awareness and see for yourself directly what I said about it. Does it change? No. No. Does it have a form? No. No. Does it want anything? Does it need anything? How old is it? Is it a male or a female? Does it have a history? Does it have a future? Is it suffering? No. No. So you can see for yourself that what I'm talking about is real and true. It's obvious. It's direct. You can see it directly for yourself, right? So now you have the answer, so start being that. Just start being that. Oh, really?
It's crazy.
Yeah, the reason I said just start being that is because I know you can't, right? And that's the twist. That's the twist on this. It's something that you have to keep, like when you say I'm not there yet, you are there. You're trying to understand awareness conceptually, right? But awareness is non-conceptual. It's very simple. It's happening all the time. Right? So it is possible. You just gotta have faith that it is the truth and you can experience it. You may have to do some looking, to see it, but it is there to be seen, right? And when you get to a point where you realize it and you see it and you recognize it's there, and because that's the case, you understand that these teachings are the truth. That's why they're called the truth. The truth means it doesn't change. It's always the same. That's the truth, right? Something that's untrue changes. Right? It's unstable, right? But the truth is something that doesn't change and the awareness doesn't change. So, but you can't, by hearing about it and even understanding it conceptually, right? And wanting it because you don't want to suffer. Everybody wants to have peace. Everybody wants to be happy. But that's not enough. That's not enough. Like you said, the personality won't let you do that, right? Well, what happens then if you understand this, right? If you understand it and if you've had a direct perception of the awareness, right? What happens that doesn't allow you to just switch over and be that? What happens that it doesn't allow you to just switch over and be that?
Got to keep practicing. Mind.
Yeah, what happens is that the orientation that you had, the conditioning that you had, right, is a program that's playing in your brain. And it's playing in your mind, right? And just because you see a possibility called awareness, right, that program doesn't automatically shut off and disappear and you start being that awareness. It doesn't work like that. Not only that, it can't work like that because if it did shut off and you just started being the awareness, right, you'd sit there and you'd be comatose. Because the awareness is formless. It's not going anywhere. It's not doing anything, right? So you can't actually be it in the world. If you were going to be it in the world, right, then you wouldn't know who you were. You wouldn't have a personality. You wouldn't know what to do. All your conditioning would disappear. You wouldn't know where you were, right? So that doesn't work. You can't just be the awareness, right? So what has to happen to get this to work, right? What has to happen is you have to practice paying attention to that awareness so that awareness gradually starts to recondition your brain. So by paying attention to that awareness consistently over time, consistently, day after day after day, looking at it day after day after day, again and again and again, this is called meditation, right? By looking at it day after day after day, again and again, that the awareness starts to become real. It's not just something that you touch when you're practicing meditation. See, when we're practicing meditation, we're moving attention from the thinking activity to the awareness of the body breathing. I'm not thinking, just being aware of the body breathing. So every time I do that, I'm touching reality. I'm touching the truth of myself. But it doesn't stay long. It bounces right back into the thought process because the conditioning is the automatic mechanical way that my brain works. It just keeps feeding me the thoughts. It just keeps feeding me the perceptions. It just keeps feeding me the identity. So that even after hearing about this and wanting to experience this, the people who are wanting to experience this are called spiritual seekers. They're seeking their true identity. They're seeking the realization of their true identity. So there's this process that has to occur. You're not just going to learn about the truth and then experience the truth and everything changes. The transformation happens by itself. It doesn't work like that. It's an interesting process, really, because the personality is learning who you think you are is who you're being right now. And that's learning about the possibility of freedom and the possibility of not suffering and the possibility of being happy. And the personality's wanted that all along, hasn't it? It's wanted that all along. So now you hear about this and saying, oh, this is different. This is different. This is much different. This is not something that's going to come from me by getting more money or changing my environment and all the ways that I've been playing this game. This is going to come to me just by waking up and realizing my true nature. So I'm really interested in this. And I see these people who are awake and who practice this and become gurus, and they look so peaceful. And they're talking about this experience of transformation and transcendence where they're experiencing life in a way where they're tranquil all the time. They're experiencing peace and tranquility and satisfaction all the time. So it must be possible. I really want this. Now watch. Here's where it really gets interesting. Because the one who wants this, the personality, the one who wants this, the one you think you are, right, is the problem. The one who wants this has to be seen as not being real. The one who wants this has to be recognized as an illusion, as a mirage, as it's not real. But you are so oriented to that, and you're so conditioned to that, that even if you understand what I just said, it still plays. It still plays. So you could sit here and meditate and experience some calmness and some peace and some relaxation physically, and you might even get some insights about what I'm talking about, right? And you might be interested in that in terms of, well, I want to experience my life this way. But then you leave here, and by the time you get home, you're 100% back in the shit. 100% back identified as the body and the personality. It won't even it'll happen before you get home, because I know there's a lot of traffic on Route 1. So as soon as you get in the traffic, right, it'll start to play. It'll start to say, oh shit, here we are again, the traffic, And you'll totally forget everything that you heard here. It won't matter that you heard what you heard here. So, the one thing I want to just make clear to you is that there's the teaching and the practice, right? Without the teaching, the practice is limited, right? Without the teaching, the practice is limited. So you have to be willing to give some attention to the teaching. You have to pursue these teachings and really see them clearly for what they are. And then when you're practicing, you know why you're practicing. You know what it makes possible. The meditation process is not intended to get you anywhere. It's intended for you to realize where you already are, so that you stop pursuing things that have to do with what you're not and where you're not.